Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take source material, dive deep, and pull out those crucial insights you need to get informed fast. Today, we're tackling something really fundamental. I mean, it affects pretty much everything you do, habits. We've got some fascinating excerpts from a book on the subject right here. And, the author kicks things off with a story that really sets the scene. He had this incredibly tough injury back in college playing baseball. We're talking broken nose, facial fractures, bulging eye, double vision, even seizures. Just brutal. And the recovery, well, it sounds like a nightmare. Months of double vision, 8 months before he could drive again. Physical therapy just to walk in a straight line. He talks about feeling totally overwhelmed, depressed. But the big takeaway wasn't some miracle cure. It was, and I'm quoting here, a gradual evolution, a long series of small wins and tiny breakthroughs.
Yeah, that personal story is so important for understanding the core message here. It's really about the incredible power of starting small, focusing on those consistent, tiny improvements day after day. And he didn't just learn this from the injury, he actually applied it. A few years later, he started writing, putting articles up on his website, jamesclear.com. This was back in November 2012. Just that simple, consistent habit of writing. And, it worked. He got his first 1,000 email subscribers in just a few months. Then by the end of 2013, 30,000. A year later, over 100,000. It wasn't luck, right? It was that compounding effect of just showing up consistently. That led straight to a book deal in 2015. It just perfectly illustrates how small actions, repeated, build into something really significant.
Right, exactly. Not overnight success at all. It was years of putting in the work. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to unpack the most vital insights from this material, how habits form, how they work, and crucially, how you can change them. Give you that actionable knowledge. Okay, let's dive in. Where do we even start with changing habits?
Well, the first place this material points us is maybe a bit counterintuitive. It says, focus on systems, not goals. Goals are, about the results, crossing the finish line, losing the weight. They solve problems, but maybe just temporarily. Systems, though, they're about the process that gets you those results. It's about fixing the inputs, so the outputs kind of take care of themselves. The source puts it really neatly. Fix the inputs, and the outputs will fix themselves.
Ah, okay. And that's where the idea of tiny gains or tiny losses really clicks, because they absolutely compound. I love the examples given. Your net worth. That's just a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your fitness level reflects your eating and exercise habits. Your knowledge comes from your learning habits. Even the clutter in your house points to your cleaning habits. It says you get what you repeat. It's all about consistency.
Exactly right. Time just magnifies everything. Those small daily choices become huge differences over weeks, months, years. But this is also, where people often get discouraged. You might hit what the source calls the plateau of latent potential, or you feel like you're stuck in the valley of disappointment. You're doing the work, showing up daily, but the big results aren't obvious yet. It feels like nothing's happening. But that's just how compounding works, right? The most powerful outcomes are often delayed. Your effort isn't wasted, it's being stored, like heating an ice cube. From 25 degrees to 31 degrees, it doesn't look like much is changing, but then, boom, 32 degrees, and it melts dramatically. When that breakthrough finally comes, people might call it overnight success, but, there's all that earlier work when progress felt invisible.
That ice cube analogy really works. Okay, so small things compound, focus on the system. How does that system actually work? What's the structure of a habit in our brain?
Great question. It boils down to a really simple four-step loop. It goes cue, craving, response, and reward. And this isn't just theory, it's like the backbone of every single habit. Your brain runs through these steps in this order every time. So first up is the cue. That's the trigger. It tells your brain, hey, initiate this behavior. It's basically predicting a reward is coming. Historically, cues were basic survival things. Food, water. Now, could be anything. A phone notification, seeing a colleague grab coffee, feeling stressed. Your mind's constantly scanning for these.
Okay, the trigger.
Then comes the craving. This is the motivational force. It's the desire for that predicted reward. You don't actually crave the habit itself, like smoking. You crave the state change. It brings the relief, the satisfaction, the comfort. Habits are all about scratching that itch, satisfying that craving. It's the anticipation that drives you.
Right, the motivation piece.
The third step is the response. That's the actual habit you perform. Could be a thought, like thinking positive affirmations, or an action, like checking email or biting your nails. It's how you try to get the reward.
The action itself.
And finally, the reward. This is the payoff. It satisfies the craving. But crucially, it also teaches your brain, okay, that worked. Remember this action for next time you see that cue. It closes the feedback loop.
Got it. Cue, craving, response, reward.
And the source is really clear on this. If any one of those steps is weak or missing, a behavior won't become a solid habit. No cue. You don't even start. Weak craving, no motivation, response too difficult, you can't do it. Reward unsatisfying, you won't repeat it. You need the first three for the behavior to even happen. But you need all four working together for it to stick and become automatic.
That loop makes perfect sense. But like you said, once it's automatic, it becomes unconscious. Great for good habits, but a real problem. If you want to change a bad one, you barely notice. How do you tackle something you're not even fully aware of? Reminds me of that Carl Jung quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Absolutely. Awareness is step one. Always. You can't change what you don't see. The material gives a couple of really practical ways to boost awareness. One is called pointing and calling. It's a safety ritual from Japanese railways. Operators literally point at signals and call out what they see. Signal is green. It sounds simple, but that act of pointing and speaking takes an automatic visual check and makes it conscious. It drastically cuts down on errors. You could adapt that for your own habits.
Interesting. Like verbalizing what you're about to do.
Exactly. Or the second method, the habit scorecard. This is just a simple exercise. List out your daily habits from waking up to sleeping. Just write them down, wake up, check phone, brush teeth, make coffee. No judgment, just observation. This forces you to actually see your patterns and the cues triggering them. It shines a light on your day so you can see what's really going on and maybe respond differently.
Okay, so inventorying first. Then, once you know your habits, how do you make the cues for the new habits, the good ones, obvious enough that you actually do them?
Right? This is where implementation intentions are super helpful. It's all about being specific. The format is simple. I will behavior at time and location. So instead of a vague, I want to meditate more, you make a concrete plan. I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my living room. Gives the habit a specific time and place to live in the world, right? Makes the cue much clearer and harder to ignore or forget. The goal is for the time and location itself to become the trigger.
Giving it coordinates in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And you could build on that with habit stacking. This uses habits you already do reliably. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit. Like, after I pour my morning coffee, I will take my vitamins. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will change into my workout clothes. You're basically latching the new habit onto an existing reliable cue, that habit scorecard you made. Perfect for finding those strong existing habits to stack onto.
Okay, that makes sense. Link the new to the old. It seems like a lot of this first law, making it obvious, really comes down to your environment. The source mentions Lewin's equation. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment. B equals FPE. Our surroundings shape us more than we think, don't they? Whispering in a library, feeling cautious on a dark street.
Oh, absolutely. Your environment is constantly sending signals, cues, and our senses, especially sight for humans, are wired to pick them up. Think about animals, an eagle's vision, a snake sensing heat. Humans, a huge chunk of our brain is dedicated just to processing visual information.
Yeah.
We react strongly to what we see.
So we're visual creatures.
Very much so. So to make good habits obvious, you literally need to make their cues visible in your space. Want to drink more water? Keep a water bottle on your desk. Want to practice guitar? Leave it out in the middle of the living room, not hidden in a closet. You strategically sprinkle these triggers around. Make the good choice the easy, visible one. Make the best choice the most obvious one.
Which leads right into designing your environment, right? Creating spaces that nudge you towards good habits and away from bad ones.
I like that one space, one use idea.
Yeah, it's surprisingly powerful. The examples are great. That Dutch energy company putting meters outside so energy use was obvious, not hidden. Mass General Hospital rearranging their cafeteria. They put water bottles right by the registers, made soda harder to find. Water sales went up, soda sales dropped. Simple design change.
Wow.
The author talks about getting a house with a separate office. That physical boundary helped create a mental one. Work happens in here, life happens out there. Even trying a new grocery store can help you break old patterns because you're not seeing the same cues for junk food in the usual aisles. Starting fresh in a new environment often makes building new habits easier. You're not fighting the old triggers.
Okay, but what about the flip side? Bad habits. Right. Bad habits can be autocatalytic. Doing them reinforces the cues. And just trying to resist temptation constantly drains your willpower. It's exhausting. The source says something pretty stark. I've never seen someone consistently stick to positive habits in a negative environment. So the smart move for bad habits isn't just willpower. It's making their cues invisible. Get the junk food off the counter. Unplug the TV in the bedroom, hide your phone when you need to focus. Cut the bad habit off at the source by removing its trigger. Okay, so making it obvious is law one. What's next? How do we make the habit itself something we actually want to do? That brings us to law two. Make it attractive. This ties back to the craving stage. Remember, cravings aren't just about getting the reward, they're driven by the anticipation of it. It's that prediction that motivates us. And this is where dopamine is key. Dopamine spikes not just when you get a reward, but strongly when you anticipate one. That's why things like junk food, drugs, gambling, social media are so addictive. They promise a powerful, immediate reward, and that anticipation is potent.
That anticipation piece is huge. It makes me think of those studies on supernormal stimuli in animals.
Exactly. That's a perfect parallel. Tinbergen's work with gold chicks, right? They peck a red spot on mom's beak for food. He made fake cardboard beaks. Chicks pecked them, but they pecked faster at beaks with bigger red spots. Then he made one with 3 huge red spots, totally unnatural, and the chicks went nuts for it. Or the gray-legged goose rolling eggs back to the nest. They would try to roll any round thing, billiard balls, light bulbs, even a volleyball. And it preferred the bigger fake objects over its own eggs. They were responding more intensely to exaggerated supernormal versions of the natural cue.
So our brains can get hijacked by these exaggerated cues too.
Totally. Our ancient wiring still craves salt, sugar, fat because they were rare and valuable for survival. The modern food industry knows this. They engineer products to be hyper-palatable. Enhanced flavors, optimized crunch or sensation, they call it. That dynamic contrast, like a crunchy fry with a soft inside. These are modern supernormal stimuli designed to be irresistible.
Wow, so they're literally hacking our evolutionary cravings. It also seems like our social environment massively shapes what we find attractive. The book says, humans are herd animals, we want to fit in. Being an outcast was dangerous historically. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives.
Oh, absolutely. Social norms are incredibly powerful drivers of attractiveness. We tend to copy the habits of 3 groups in particular. The close, our family and friends. Think how often smoking starts because friends do it. Their approval makes it attractive. The majority, our tribe, our culture. Behaviors that are considered normal where you live just feel more appealing. Like the Polgar sisters, whose family culture made intense chess study totally normal and attractive. The powerful, people with status or prestige. We often mimic successful people, consciously or not, because we find their traits and results attractive.
And fitting in feels good, right? It's not usually a burden.
Yeah. Exactly. Everyone wants to belong. So behaviors that help you fit in, earn respect, or gain approval, they just become more attractive. Wearing the right clothes for your workplace, using the inside jokes your friends use, it's all about belonging.
So if social cues and brain chemistry make things attractive, can we flip that, make bad habits unattractive? The source mentions reframing your cues, using Alan Carr's smoking cessation work as an example.
Yes, absolutely. Reframing is about changing the meaning you associate with a cue. Carr's method, for instance, systematically attacks the perceived benefits of smoking. Instead of smoking relaxes me, you consciously reframe it. Smoking is poisoning my lungs and costing me money. You highlight the downsides, associate the cue with negative feelings. By changing how you think about the cue, you make the behavior triggers much less appealing, less attractive. Okay, so we've made it obvious, made it attractive. The third law tackles the actual doing. Make it easy. It comes down to a basic principle. The law of least effort. Humans naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least work. It's not really about laziness, it's about efficiency. Our brains are wired to conserve energy. Think of water flowing through a bent hose, it takes the easiest path.
Right, conserve energy. And this loops back to environment design again, doesn't it? Reducing friction for good habits.
Precisely. Companies are masters at this. Think about Japanese electronics manufacturers using lean production. They redesigned workspaces to minimize steps, make tools easy to reach. Less friction meant more efficiency, better products. Or look around today, meal delivery services. They remove the friction of shopping, prepping, cooking, dating apps. Remove the friction of meeting people organically, ride sharing. Removes finding taxis, parking. Technology constantly aims to automate, eliminate, or simplify steps. Talking to a smart speaker is easier than finding your phone, unlocking it, opening an app. Netflix autoplay removes the tiny friction of clicking next episode.
It's all about removing those little barriers. The source also talks about decisive moments, these little choices that are like forks in the road.
Yeah, these are key. They might seem small in the moment, but these choices dramatically shape the path you take next. Choosing which restaurant to walk into determines your entire menu of options. Turning left instead of right sets you on a different journey. These decisive moments stack up. Choosing to get out of bed immediately versus hitting snooze sets the tone for the whole morning. Mastering these small, pivotal choices is crucial because we are limited by where our habits lead us.
Okay, so how do we make the good choice at those decisive moments easier? The source has a really practical strategy, the 2-minute rule.
Ah, yes, the 2-minute rule. That's beautifully simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Now, this doesn't mean the whole habit is only 2 minutes long. It means the very first step, the initiation, should be scaled down to something super easy, something you can do in under 2 minutes. So, read before bed every night becomes read one page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study Spanish for an hour becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
Just get started.
Exactly. The goal is to make starting effortless. Remove the friction from the beginning. Once you've started, inertia often carries you forward. It's much easier to keep going once you're already doing it. It creates a gateway habit. The first 2 minutes should feel easy. The point isn't the initial outcome. It's mastering the art of showing up. One push-up is infinitely better than 0 push-ups.
Do less than you hoped rather than nothing at all.
Precisely. And once you've nailed that 2-minute start, once you're showing up consistently, then you can use habit shaping. You gradually increase the duration or difficulty. Master reading 1 page, then try 3 pages, then 5. Master taking out the yoga mat, then do 1 pose, then 5 minutes. You scale up slowly.
Standardize before you optimize. Get the habit established, even tiny, before worrying about making it perfect or longer.
You got it. And, the ultimate way to make a habit easy is automation, especially for things you do less often, like monthly or yearly tasks. Setting up automatic bill pay, automatic retirement contributions, these completely remove friction and the need for willpower or memory.
Set it and forget it.
Right. Other examples.
Yeah.
Automatic prescription refills, using meal delivery services, website blockers for focused work. Alfred North Whitehead said, "Civilization advances by extending the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them. Automation does that for our habits." But, a quick warning, technology can cut both ways. It can make bad habits effortless too, like that Netflix autoplay making it easier to binge watch than to stop.
All right, we've made it obvious, attractive, easy. What's the final piece? How do we make sure we stick with it? The source says repeating a behavior comes down to satisfaction. Law 4, make it satisfying.
Yes, and this one runs headfirst into a big challenge of modern life. We live in a delayed return environment. Think about it. The rewards for many good habits are way off in the future. You work now, get paid weeks later.
Yeah.
You exercise now, see health benefits maybe next year. You save now, enjoy retirement decades later. But our brains evolved for an immediate return environment. Finding food, water, shelter right now was key to survival. So we have this built-in bias toward instant gratification.
We value now much more than later.
Exactly. And that's why bad habits are so tempting. The reward is immediate. The pleasure of the cigarette, the taste of the junk food, the dopamine hit from social media. The negative consequences, those are delayed. Pleasure now, pain later.
So it's a constant tug of war. Future you makes plans, but present you makes the choice in the moment and usually goes for the immediate feel-good option.
Right. Relying on good intentions just isn't enough. The trick, according to the source, is to hack this system. You need to add a little bit of immediate pleasure to the habits that pay off in the long run and a little bit of immediate pain to ones that don't.
Engineer some instant gratification for good habits and instant consequences for bad ones. Tell me about that Pakistan hand-washing story with the Safeguard soap. That sounded fascinating.
Oh, it's a brilliant case study. In Karachi, they knew hand washing was important for health, but people weren't doing it consistently. The intervention wasn't just more education. They supplied Safeguard soap. Now, Safeguard was seen as a premium soap. It lathered really well. It smelled good. It made the act of washing hands a more enjoyable experience.
So it felt better to do it.
Exactly. And the results. Huge drops in illnesses.
Right.
Diarrhea down 52%, pneumonia 48%, skin infections 35%. But here's the kicker. 6 years later, researchers went back. Over 95% of households still had soap and water readily available. The habit had stuck. Why? Because they'd become habituated to wash their hands. Partly because the immediate experience itself became satisfying.
That's incredible. It wasn't just the long-term health benefit, but the immediate sensory reward. So how can we apply that? How do you add immediate pleasure to something like, say, saving money or exercising?
You need immediate rewards that feel good and are aligned with the habit's goal or the identity you're building. The source gives the example of a couple saving for a trip to Europe. Every time they skipped dinner out, they immediately transferred $50 into a separate trip to Europe account. Seeing that account grow provided immediate, satisfying feedback aligned with their goal.
Right, not rewarding yourself for skipping dinner by eating ice cream at home.
Exactly. That sends conflicting signals. A better reward for exercise might be a massage afterward. It feels good immediately and reinforces the identity of someone who cares for their body. And the source points out, as the intrinsic rewards of the habit start to kick in, feeling more energetic, sleeping better, seeing your savings grow, the need for these extra, immediate, artificial rewards tends to decrease.
Okay, what else makes habits satisfying? Habit tracking comes up.
Yes. Habit tracking is powerful for several reasons. First, it gives you immediate visual proof of your progress. Seeing those X's on the calendar feels good. Second, it's motivating. You build up a streak, you don't want to break the chain. That desire to keep the streak alive becomes a motivator in itself. And third, the act of tracking itself can become its own reward. Checking off that box, filling in that square, provides a little hit of satisfaction right away. It feels good to see the results accumulate.
And for the other side, making bad habits immediately unsatisfying, the source talks about accountability partners and habit contracts.
Right. This is about creating immediate negative consequences. Roger Fisher's wild idea for nuclear deterrence is mentioned putting launch codes in a volunteer who'd have to be killed first. An extreme way to make the consequence immediate and painful.
Mm.
On a personal level, the weight loss contract example is great. Having a trainer, his wife involved, specific targets for weight and food, and real stakes, paying $100 or $500 fines for missing goals. The worst, having to wear a rival football team's hat if he missed workouts.
Ouch, that would hurt.
Definitely. But even without a formal written contract, just having an accountability partner helps. Knowing that someone is watching can be a powerful motivator. The immediate cost isn't money, but the potential social pain letting someone down, looking unreliable. That can be enough to keep you on track. Stepping back from the four laws, there's this really critical, bigger idea woven throughout the material. Ultimately, your behavior is a reflection of your identity. What you do is an indication of the type of person you believe that you are. It's profound when you think about it. When your actions align with who you believe you are when you see yourself as a reader, not just someone who sometimes reads the behavior, feels natural. It's not forced. You're not pursuing change anymore. You're simply acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be.
So it's a feedback loop. Habits build identity. Identity drives habits.
Exactly. It's a two-way street. And this makes identity change the North Star of habit change. The real goal isn't just the outcome, like losing weight. It's becoming the type of person who is healthy and active.
That shifts the focus inward. And the source connects us to finding the right game to play, aligning your habits with your natural inclinations or abilities. Genes don't seal your fate, but they might make certain paths easier or more rewarding for you.
Absolutely. Habits are just easier and more satisfying when they align with what you're naturally good at or enjoy. If you're playing a game where the odds are slightly in your favor, you tend to do better, get praised, feel competent, stay motivated. It creates a virtuous cycle. The quote sums it up. Pick the right habit and progress is easy. Pick the wrong habit and life is a struggle. Find where your skills and interests overlap.
Makes sense. Play to your strengths.
But even when you find the right game, there's another big hurdle. Boredom. This leads to what the source calls the Goldilocks rule. Humans stay most motivated when they're working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too easy, that's boring, not too hard, that's discouraging, but just challenging enough to stay engaged, maybe around 4% beyond your current skill level. That's often where flow happens.
That story about the weightlifting coach really highlights the boredom factor. Someone asked him the difference between the best athletes and everyone else.
Yeah, he talked about genetics, sure. But then he said, at some point it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over and over.
Wow. It's not about always feeling motivated.
Not at all. Successful people feel bored or unmotivated just like everyone else. The difference is they find a way to show up anyway. Mastery requires practice. Practice means repetition, and repetition inevitably gets boring sometimes. That's the key difference between professionals and amateurs, the source argues. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. To become truly excellent, you have to somehow be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom.
Fall in love with boredom, that's a tough one.
It is. And one final point here. Even when habits are established, you can't just go on autopilot forever if you want peak performance. You need deliberate practice, constantly tweaking, looking for small improvements, and you have to guard against letting pride in your current identity stop you from seeing where you can still grow.
Okay, wow. We have covered a ton in this deep dive, from the power of tiny compounding changes and focusing on systems, not just goals, to that fundamental four-step habit loop: cue, craving, response, reward. And then the four laws to engineer better habits: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. We hit on specific strategies like implementation intentions, habit stacking, environment design, reframing cues, the 2-minute rule, habit tracking accountability partners, and tying it all together, that crucial link between our habits and our identity.
Yeah, and it's worth noting the source mentions these principles aren't just for personal habits. They apply in business, parenting, other areas too. It's a pretty universal framework for understanding behavior change. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something the source touches on regarding happiness. It quotes someone saying, happiness is the space between one desire being fulfilled and a new desire forming. Suffering is often that gap between wanting something and getting it. We chase the idea of pleasure, the anticipation, but satisfaction really comes after the action when the craving is met. Peace, it suggests, comes when you can observe things without immediately turning them into problems to be solved. And it really hammers home. Your actions reveal what you truly value. If you say something's a priority but you never make time for it, maybe you don't want it as much as you claim. It echoes Seneca. Being poor is not having too little, it's wanting more. Happiness is so often about managing expectations.
That's a powerful place to wrap up. If our actions truly reveal our motivations, what are your current habits telling you about what you really want? Something to chew on until the next deep dive.